I don't know if you know this part of our story, but at one point Dane was actually on hospice, and we thought he was going to pass away
No.
for his first birthday. So you talk about changes of life and changes of plans, and when we had Dane, our goal was just one step at a time. I want to have this baby and hold my child. I want to see my child come home to us. I want to hold my child in my hands.
Hello. We are another podcast by Soft. We're going to be talking Trisomy. We're just going to be getting into all the great and wonderful things, but we have some special guests that we are grateful. They have made some time for us today. We got Steve and Jen Sogge. I'd do you an injustice introducing you guys, so I think it would be fun if you guys introduce each other. And you guys have played a pivotal part of Soft the last few years. And so tell us a little bit about each of you, your family, and then we're going to get into like a fun part of your guys' family story here in a minute. But Steve, why don't you do the honors of introducing Jen?
Yeah, so this is Jen Sogge. She's my wife. We've been married since 2007. She is currently on the board of Soft as well and serving as the vice president. And she's also on the medical board. So
no small task for you. Thank you, Steve. Now, Jen, let's do the opposite, and you introduce Steve here.
All right. Well, this is my husband, Steve. As you said, we've been married for a little while now. He is also on the medical board as well. And he is currently a practicing physician as well. And I don't know, he's kind of the backbone around here, keeping things in order.
Yeah. I want to know more about that. But I think these two are here with our early days in our podcasting here at Soft. We like to talk all things trisomy. And so these two individuals not only will learn more about their child and their children, they got a family and all these wonderful things that their kids do. And we'll talk about Dane. But these two have played pivotal roles, not just as members of Soft, but with their medical, careers and background. They are both on the medical board. So they are champion doctors here at Soft. And so they have a great perspective, the fact that their whole family kind of brings quite the talent and excitement. So I've had a chance to rub shoulders at the last couple Soft conferences, and you two are probably, don't tell anybody else. Hopefully nobody's listening, but the Sogge family is an awesome family. Anyway, we'll get into that. So just to keep it casual and to keep things moving, I just want to know, tell us about your family. I know you guys can brag about your kids, and then let's talk about Dane. I think everybody's favorite in the Sogge household, at least from I gathered when I see you guys. So tell us a little bit about your family.
So we have Derek, who is 15, going on 16 soon. So that means independently driving. We have Elin, who is 14. And then we waited a few years and we had Dane, who was born in 2017. And he passed in 2021. And then we have a variety of animals around the farm, as we have a 10-acre property. So they also included in our family are a couple horses, a ton of chickens, and 3 dogs, and a bearded dragon.
A bearded dragon.
Yeah.
When did the bearded dragon enter the family?
So the bearded dragon was during the pandemic, or just at the kind of start. Derek wanted a snake. And so the compromise was a bearded dragon, as neither of us were really ready at that point or ever for a snake in the house. Now we have plenty around the property that I don't want to see. But yeah, that was the compromise.
Well, living on a farm, a snake might have, just sampled some of your livestock, it sounds like. So I think you made a good choice with the bearded dragon as you evolve. So that's quite the background. We love it. And Jen, do you have anything to add to the family? Anything Steve left out?
I don't think so. He he did forget we do have 2 cats as well.
Ah,
So, but I don't know. We stay pretty busy as a family. We do a lot of activities. We all like to travel. My son's very academic, so he likes things like academic quiz bowls and chess, math contests. And my daughter is more on the athletic side, and she actually rides horses. And she also wants to get into rock climbing. That's her new thing. And they both have done some like karate and some other stuff in the background. So we keep a very busy house. Both before and after Dane was with us, we tried not to let his limitations, if that's the right word, but we tried not to let anything get in the way. We didn't treat him like he was just one of us and part of our family.
yeah.
Yeah, tried to stay active and we made, tried to take him out as much as we could, uh, so he could enjoy that as well.
We can get more into that.
Yeah, we'll get
Yeah.
later.
No, that's awesome. I like that perspective as parents, but I too have 3 children, and you just hopefully, the one that is driving, you probably say a few more prayers. I've got a 15 and a half-year-old, so I'm right behind you guys. I'm a little nervous about my insurance and then
We're
her
at the
and
same place.
her safety.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys can
And the
relate to
safety of the
that.
others on the road.
Well,
Yes,
yeah, he turns 16 in February, so we have a few more months before
it's
I have to
coming.
get the insurance piece, but I'm very worried. So, because it's
Yeah,
already
and like we all know, it's not them, it's the others, like you said, Jen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was always a talk my mom would always give, one with the car. So my 2 seconds advice is my mother would scare any other person when I started driving, or if they were driving me and they just got their license. It's like, you're one with the car. The radio's low. Nobody's talking. Everybody's focused on the road. Let the driver drive. So
Yeah.
if you need, Chris Holiday can produce a quite the lecture to scare teenagers if you need one.
I'll have her on
Uh,
speed dial.
you should. You should. But that's wonderful. Kids are growing up. Let's transition into, let's talk about the family and Dane. And I know that's such an integral part of your family of let's tell a few, maybe a memory or two of like your favorite about Dane, and then let's go back in time and learn about kind of just the evolution of the Sogge family.
Yeah.
But what if that's all right with you? Could I ask, like, could you recount a favorite memory?
Well, there's a lot to choose from. It's hard. We had him for 4.5 years, and we did a lot of things with him. Like I said earlier, we didn't want to limit our lives and his life. We had kind of a bucket list of things that we wanted to continue doing and do with him, because we knew those would form special memories for the future. So, I mean, some of our favorite is we lived in Las Vegas when he was alive. And we used to go to a lot of hockey games, to the Golden Knight games, and he loved going. Like, he would watch, we would do the wave together. And he would just giggle and laugh and smile. We would go down to the ice and he would watch the players down there. And, we just have a lot of precious memories of him going to the games with us and sitting there. And even with some of our friends, we would leave our 2 kids at home and bring with
And
2.
take Dane.
They'd always steal him from us to hold him for the whole game. So, it's just like fun things that you wouldn't expect a non-typical child to be at, like,
Yeah.
on oxygen, and he had a trach, and we just brought it all with us and, had fun. So, there's other, more personal memories, like of him giggling and smiling. He really enjoyed pulling Elan's glasses off her face, playing with Steve's beard. So there's, the simple memories and the more complex, memories that were formed on trips. So,
yeah. He liked
I love
going
that.
roller coaster at Disney World.
yeah, right before he passed, he went on his first roller coaster, which
Yeah.
was pretty
Which one?
Goofy ride.
Goofy.
It was a
Yeah.
goofy ride at Disney World. So, Dane went to a lot of different places. So he
Hawaii.
went to, oh, I have to sit down and actually count the number of states, but we lived in Nevada, and he's been to, let's see, Oregon, California, Arizona, Utah, Hawaii, Tennessee, Florida,
Michigan.
Michigan.
Did we ever? Where else?
So that's 7 I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there's some others that we have been through, or maybe short-term stops at. So I mean
Traveler.
that's pretty crazy to
That's
think about.
it is. I think that beats most of my kids, I think, until this last soft conference where we drove through a couple states to see some things. But that's impressive. So Dane, world traveler, at least domestic traveler
Yeah.
here in the US. So
We wanted to do international, but we just didn't feel safe doing that. We always worried about where we would go if something happened. So we kind of stuck to closer to home, or not home, but in the US, as we thought it would be a little bit easier, if there was a hospitalization or illness or something that would come up. But.
Well, with him on oxygen too, it was just not knowing the resources for travel like that, and that's why we never took him on a cruise either. It was just too many, type questions for those. But then, outside of that, we love to take him everywhere. So air travel was, we had a concentrator we could take on board, so that we didn't let that stop us. Not just having to drive everywhere. We enjoyed flying.
That's awesome. I know, thinking of cruises, I know like Stacy Van Haraway, in her adulthood, I think in her 20s, they went on a cruise or two. And I always thought just this. So awesome that you guys didn't hold back. The family moved forward with the different things, and he rode on his first roller coaster and all of these things. I know you guys are big Disney people, or at least because now you're closer to Disney World. But the first time, my memory of first time meeting you guys, you were wearing Vegas Nights like a hoodie or something. It was cold in the hotel. We were at a meeting together, and I was introduced to you as someone that lives in Memphis, and I'm like, why are you wearing Vegas Night things? So I now see why there's just like this, a lot of fond memories of those games and being in Vegas and seeing the team show up and move there. And then you had Dane at those games. So it all makes sense now why you're rocking the Vegas Nights. Plus they were better. I'm here in Arizona where we lost a team because we were so bad.
It's true.
But the Vegas Nights, now that makes a ton more sense. That's an awesome memory. As someone that's sports fanatic, that's pretty cool. Dane was a hockey fan.
Yep.
All right. Now, I've one of the things I want to do in all these interviews is talk about the diagnoses and just kind of that story, and not that I want to dwell on either positives or negatives, but just the evolution of like how news was brought to you. I had a chance to, I've heard the story of my sister Carrie, and I recently was interviewing my mom in this new podcast format, and a few things stuck out to me. Just in 1977, what was going on, the medical facilities and things like that. So anyway, I just love to kind of hear like an overview of all the things that were going on and maybe what was in your mind. You guys are medical professionals, so if you guys want to use some lingo in that world, by all means, you can make me sound ignorant of my knowledge. Anyway, just if you guys could let's go back to that if we can, if that's comfortable for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had moved to Vegas in 2016 after finishing training. Jen was in anesthesia. She was with a private group, and I was with a private practice group there for radiology. And it was around, was it Christmas time that we got the first ultrasound?
Yeah. So after we found out we were pregnant, they did offer all the normal prenatal testing, which we had 2 healthy children at home, and we just decided we were going to just do normal testing, and we didn't do any in-depth high risk OB, because at that point I was over 35, so they wanted to have me go to high risk OB and all that. And I said, at this point I don't want to necessarily do that. It's not going to change anything that we're going to do. And then as well, if there's anything seriously wrong, we'll see it on our 20-week ultrasound that we'll have. And, at that point, if we need to make major decisions, there's still time, but likely it's not going to change anything anyway. So my OB was like, okay, Jen,
And
you
this was
know what's going on.
the OB is a neighbor of ours, by the
Yes,
way, in
the
our
OB's a
community.
friend and a neighbor of ours. So he's like, all right, well, that's what you want. That's what that's fine. And so on our 20-week ultrasound, that's when they first saw that he had some cysts on his brain. And
Well,
they
so
saw that he had a clubbed hand and some clubbed feet and some other like just minor abnormalities. And the ultrasound tech was kind of,
she gave this weird look and kind of walked out of the room and wasn't very communicative with us.
and I don't remember if we had told her that Steve can read ultrasounds either at that point.
So
So
we obviously know something is going on because she leaves the room and has to go get someone. And then they come back in and kind of discuss.
they
Not
said
really.
we need to send you to high risk
Yeah.
like tomorrow. So I was like, okay, do you want to give us more info? And she was just very general. And the doc, I think he was not quite, he wasn't in the office that day. So he ended up calling us later and he was like, I think you really need to see high risk OB. We think this might be one of the trisomy conditions, but we should just further get this checked out and see what's going on. So I ended up going into high risk OB like 2 days later. We had our full ultrasound, and the high risk OB, who we actually didn't know personally, but we saw him, and unlike many experiences, we actually had a fairly positive experience with our high risk OB. He said, oh, he has a lot of little minor stuff. The cysts on the brain will likely go away as he gets older. That's common finding, even in non-trisomy kids. He has some hand and feet defects. And it looks like because they did a cardiac ultrasound too at the same time, he said it looks like he has a small hole in his heart that may or may not cause issues. I don't even know if he'll go to the NICU after he's born. Or we didn't know if it was a boy or girl either at that point. I don't know if you'll go to the NICU or not, but let's just, talk about what our options are at this point now that you've had this ultrasound done. So, of course they offered an amniocentesis, and then they offered some other blood work to be done. And I had an anterior placenta, and I didn't have much of a window to go through other than going through the placenta to do the amniocentesis. So we opted just to do the blood work, the non-invasive prenatal testing. And that did come back positive with trisomy 18. So our MFM said, well, let's just proceed forward, and we're going to give him the best prenatal care, and we're going to do all this monitoring. I was in the OB office a lot. And, we'll deliver him when, he, somewhere around 38, 39 weeks, depending on how things go, and he's growing, and we'll just go from there. So it was tough news. But we'd had, like I said, our MFM was kind of positive with us. He didn't give us the doom and gloom, like unfortunately a lot of other trisomy parents here. And I don't think that was because we were medical. Like I said, we didn't know him personally. So I don't know if you got the impression, I don't think being physicians, we heard anything different than he would maybe tell another trisomy parent, especially one that had issues like our son portrayed on ultrasound. So
Yeah, no, I mean, he was straightforward with us, and we had good discussions. So, and then we did some research. Then we didn't know about soft at the time, or we didn't really
not right
know
away,
too much
further in
about
the
it. Yeah.
pregnancy, because of course you hear about other agents, other groups and stuff. But further research, we did find soft, and we actually have a friend who's a geneticist who who actually played a really big role in the first month or so, at least with me. I know she talked to Steve a few times as well, but she was very positive with us. She said, this is the outcomes that can happen, but this can also happen that, he can live, and he can live for several years. She actually had several trisomy 18 and 13 patients that were, school aged. So she had experience with older trisomy children. So it was actually, and it was just luck. She actually was one of Steve's good friends from medical school. Like, so it wasn't like we sought this person out. It was just, I called her and I said, "You're a geneticist, and this is what they just told us." And she said, "Jen, it may be okay. Like, it'll be okay either way, but it'll be okay. Like, we don't know. It's not necessarily only going to live a year by 10%. It could be higher than that. And we're seeing it higher than that." So she was a lifesaver to me the first month, and gave us a lot of hope. And then we found Soft and, found the groups and did a lot of talking. And I don't remember when I first orally talked to a soft person, but or verbally talked to the first soft person. But I know it was shortly before Dane was born. It wasn't at like 20 some weeks. It was more closer to birth. And he was born at 38 weeks. So,
And we lived, a few minutes from the hospital. We know the OB well. We did enough research to know, okay, we need to come up with a birth plan for him. So that way we can, have everyone on board as to kind of what the plan is. Because you do hear, that, sometimes if that's, not arranged, it can lead to some confusion or, difficulty in communicating what your wishes are. So it's better to have kind of all that planned out.
we actually made a point to see the neonatology team beforehand, which is something that wasn't commonly done where we live or at that hospital. But we pushed through our pediatrician and through the OB and said we would really like to do this ahead of time and have a discussion with them about what their goals are, what our goals are, and go from there, because we want to make sure we deliver in a place that is going to do what we want to have done, or the care we would like to have done for our child.
That's awesome. We have a phrase around Soft, and you guys I've heard you say it, there's no coincidences. So what wonderful news that you could receive at least perspectives from your friend, Steve, that was the geneticist, and the both of you could talk to him. Just that awareness of what possibilities could be, because just a few short years ago, there was just an unknown. The lack of information out there. I mean, with the recent AAP report, how that has just changed things. I had a chance to interview Dr. Pyle and had a chance to talk to her and just think through, like, information is what's needed for these families, is her feeling, and that there are opportunities is as significant as this diagnosis and the disorder may present, and there is some limitations, and there are a number of children that might pass away either prior to birth or during birth or shortly after. There are options, and there's opportunities. So to just kind of investigate, especially with all the prenatal resources we have nowadays, it's pretty awesome stuff.
I mean, things now are just, and it was evolving when Dane was born, because when Dane was born was the time when Dr. Hamill was just starting to do all of his surgeries and being
more aggressive,
and he was being more well known that he was doing it. He was just starting to take consultations outside around the time when Dane was born. And so it's interesting the changes that have happened, and just
that was
this time period. It's like, or even just the first years that he was alive. What was coming out, the knowledge that was coming out.
I mean, even at the time, his biggest, I think, the biggest problem that came out for him was his heart. With it led to pretty severe pulmonary hypertension, and had we had the knowledge to, or then if it had been even more widespread to treat that sooner, I think his pulmonary hypertension wouldn't be as bad. So it would have, led to an even longer life for him.
Yeah, and it wasn't that we were denied surgery or anything like that.
We just didn't know about it.
cardiology team because of this. He had a VSD, and with the size of his VSD was at that time, and still is for normal karyotype children, is a watch and wait. So you watch to see if it closes, and if it doesn't close by a certain time here, then you go in and then do surgery to close it, unless something happens ahead of time. And so that's what we were doing. That was the plan that we were doing. But now, if you talk to Dr. Hamill, with the VSD that Dane had, would be one that he would have done surgery much earlier on, just because the trisomy 18 and 13 children develop pulmonary hypertension so much faster than other children. So, but at the time that wasn't really known. Nothing had been,
Yeah.
it was first.
The progress in the last few years has been amazing, and I brought up the AAP report. I'll have to cut to this, but Dane was in that issue. Dane's picture was in that. So thank you, AAP, for letting us put some soft children in there, in particular Dane. Hopefully the picture's up right now. My editing skills, or my editor will add it. But what a kind of treat to have that, such a monumental report that says, because it was incompatible with life, was what the medical journals, and you two could speak more specifically, where that's found or where that was. And this AAP report, the American Association of Pediatrics, was like, there's options. There's kind of wait and see. We need to investigate more. There's ways to know if a child can receive intervention or a particular surgery, and that could extend or enhance their lives to those degrees. So yes. So anyway, Dane is now famous and will always be associated with the AP. So I was excited
Right
when
now
that
he
happened.
pops up on the Soft Facebook page too, because the article is one of the first blog posts right now.
Yeah, it's
so whenever I open
pinned it.
trisomy.org, he's right there.
Yes, done.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there was a handful of trisomy 8. I think there was 4 pictures.
Yep.
In that. So Dane was one of them. Awesome. But yeah, that's, I was just thinking about my own sister, in 1977. I wasn't even born yet when she was born, and just kind of she made it through the weekend was kind of the story as it goes. They just didn't know, because there was no prenatal care at birth. Here, your child has trisomy 18. I could see doctors in just flipping through the journals at the time. No internet, no nothing. Who do you call? So just to hear that, 30 years later for Dane, and then 10, now another 9 years or so from then, how quickly and how different information can be. I got to add this though, because this is something that's important. With your guys' medical backgrounds, Jennifer in particular, Jen, you've been part of the new and expectant parent books that we've been creating at Soft. And so just being involved with, as you were talking about your decisions of kind of how you were making your birth plan, you oversaw the birth plan and other sections in there. So I just appreciate that we're trying to pass that along in a book that Soft has created. And you were not the only medical professional that wrote that book. We had very specific geneticists write much of it, but I loved how you had a chance to, as a parent and as a doctor, to kind of say, here's some things that we need to be in there. So again, another cut. There's a wonderful book you can get on Amazon or free on our website. And we're making a new one for trisomy 9. So we got trisomy 18 and trisomy 13 books for new and expectant parents. So another contribution of just learning, bringing your expertise from your career. What a wonderful thing that you can bless the lives of others. And so Dane's legacy lives on. So something very cool. So with that, that's what Dane has shared with the world. What have you, as your family, what have you guys learned from that experience at diagnoses, at birth? You guys traveled around. What are some of the lasting legacies Dane has taught you and maybe his siblings?
Well, and it's not just us. He also, so she said that we talked to neonatology before we went in, but he also had the opportunity after he was born to go and speak to the neonatologist at the hospital where he was born, and they got to meet him and have a little talk on trisomy 18. So he had that impact as well, and I think, having someone with medical needs, whether it be trisomy 18 or, anything else that, challenges your daily life, it teaches you compassion, to have more compassion, to have empathy. And I certainly see that reflected in the kids, and how they treat others. So,
It also teaches you how strong you are. I mean, Steve and I have done a lot of hard things in our life before we did Dane, or had Dane. We were both in the Navy as well. Um, we, we had deployments we went through. We spent the first year of our marriage apart, because of the military. Obviously, we went through a lot of school. We went through residency, and those things make you tough, but you don't realize how tough you are until you go through hard things. And having Dane and just daily life and the fights that we had with medical community, the getting care, just surviving the day through ourselves, the fights internally, that it was so much harder. And you learn so much more about yourself and what you can do and what you can go through, especially if you're working at the same time. And it's like our kids saw us go through that, and I think it makes them see things differently too. And like Steve said, they definitely have a compassion and a heart um, that is different than from what they had before he was born, because they were 6 and they were 5 when he was born. So you could see a lot of their heart and their compassion and their empathy then, and they had it. But to see the difference after, it's like a tenfold or hundredfold different, the way they view things and the way they see things. Um, they'll see something wrong now and they're like, well, why? Or see something now and they're like, why is it that way? Someone who's in a wheelchair won't be able to do that. And I can't say they would have said the same thing had Dane not been our lives, because they wouldn't have had the personal experience as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I know as a sibling, I have two disabled. I had my older sister Carrie with trisomy 18, my younger sister with hydrocephaly and cerebral palsy, and she's wheelchair bound as well. And she was younger than me, so I actually did like respite care when I was a teenager with her, and so I had a
Hmm.
chance to kind of see my family evolve with that. And you're absolutely right. It makes you, just like Steve said, have a different perspective. Compassion, patience was one thing as a teenager I had to learn from. Savannah's her name. But I'm curious. I mean, this is like a little pet thing I'm going to keep talking about, and maybe there's one day a sibling study can take place of what are the things that siblings had, because I like to share with individuals that like both Carrie and Savannah affected me and have made me a better parent in my, I have a different perspective. I see my kids in a particular light, and then just everyday things. So I think you're right. The toughness of it. I look at my parents and the skill sets that they've learned, and um, it puts things in perspective. We were talking about driving and teenagers. It puts it in perspective that it's important, but it's different. It's a different toughness. Like that's easy. We can get through that. So I just love that. Thank you for sharing that about your family. And your kids are the kindest in the world. So seeing things that are limiting is something that I could see they both have. Like, wait a minute, how do we help everybody enjoy this moment? Um, Anything else about just your family, the journey? Anything come to mind, Steve, that you'd like to share, or anything, Jen, that's coming to you?
Um, well, I mean, from the medical perspective, you look at, we look at that, and when we went through medical school, it was actually now 2 decades ago, so it was quite a while. And things really didn't change much in terms of what we were taught in terms of outlook and everything from when Carrie was born versus when even we were going through medical school. It was, and the parallel to that would be Down syndrome, which really went kind of through radical change when they started showing, these kids can do better. They, if we do interventions, we give them the care they need. And so, I think we're kind of on the early slope of that now, which I'm, really excited about, to see where it goes from there. I don't think we're at the end point. I think we're very, kind of still early on in that change of slope to where we see improvements in what we do for these kids and, what the outcomes can be that and showing that early interventions can help help modify disease that can affect them, through secondary causes. And so, it's an interesting perspective. We talked about, medical school friend that was a geneticist that really had a positive outlook. On the flip side of that, I actually had another friend that was a neonatologist that did not have a positive outlook on things. And so it was kind of interesting to, we both went through they were both medical school classmates, and, one had that real experience. The other had the experience of, she sees it occasionally, doesn't really deal with the genetics of it every day, but sees it occasionally, for work. And so it was really interesting to see the dichotomy there. And then we see that, and through the choices we had to make for Dane for his care, we had to look at, okay, well, a lot of care in Las Vegas was somewhat limiting because of his complexity. Luckily, we had a great cardiologist and we had a great pulmonologist for him in town. But we still needed additional care for like his pulmonary hypertension elsewhere. And so we are looking, okay, do we go to Los Angeles to Children's, or do we go to Utah? That's another option, because Vegas, unfortunately, at the time and even now, like a lot of medical care isn't as advanced as it should be. And I think it will get there eventually. It's not quite there yet, but the hope is that it grows. And so ultimately, after doing some research, we decided LA was probably not the right choice, and primary children's was the better choice for us to go for a lot of his care. So, and we did that. And then it would be interesting to go to other hospitals, even though we're physicians. An anecdote from that is, we tried to tell them no once, and they weren't really listening to us about his airway and did whatever they wanted, and the outcome was not great. And so, you know, even as physicians, even though we expressed our opinion and as parents that this is what we want to do, sometimes the physicians thought they knew better than us, even though we're both parents and doctors.
We still
And,
have hurdles to go through.
you still have
Yeah.
her get over. And so that could be frustrating at times. And so that's, hopefully changing as more hospitals, more facilities become, more trisomy friendly, right? Um, and yeah.
It is
I think that's
interesting
yeah,
because,
go ahead.
like
Go ahead,
Steve,
Jen.
it's interesting because Steve said, he had a neonatologist friend who was not super excited about the trisomy diagnosis, and her opinion did change as Dane got older, and she saw the things that Dane did. So it was kind of interesting. It was fun to see that impact that he had on her life as well. So, and we had a lot of, it was nice because we had a lot of support from our physicians in town to go out of state for care. And we would bring that knowledge back to them, and they were excited to learn more and see what they were doing different compared up at primary children's compared to what they were doing down there in Las Vegas. So it was kind of nice to share that experience in our home city too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the thing, and I think what I'm starting to hear is we have somebody on the board in Florida at the soft board. They reside in Florida, and they're a nurse, and their hospital they work at is creating guidelines and kind of like I guess for my business side of me, SOPs when dealing with certain diagnoses, in particular trisomy 13 and 18. And they're getting input from her and others. And so, yeah, I think that's the thing. And we had a chance to talk to Dr. John Carey, speaking of primary children's. I was assuming that was up in Utah, primary children's.
Yep.
And the hope that I'm getting from medical professionals that have been kind of on the cutting edge is just like, let's have a plan. Every hospital, every organization, every location that could receive a diagnosis of trisomy 18-13 in particular, or anything, and this could expand into a lot of different things, is just have a plan in place and know maybe your hospital has limitations. You might be in a smaller rural area. What's the plan? Who do we call? What do we do? And that way things can work quickly and efficiently for parents. And so
Yeah.
I think you're right, Steve. I think we're just on that upward slope, and we'll see where it goes from here. And hopefully these stories and other things will add to it. So
Yeah. And
appreciate
that's
you
why it
guys'
was so
perspective. Go
important.
ahead. Yeah.
And that's why it was so important to us that even though he had physicians and care up at Primary Children's, that we kept a lot of those same doctors down in Las Vegas. One, so they could see, and two, just so when we ended up in the hospital at home, they could take care of him and they knew him. But hoping that the knowledge from places that were doing more care for these children, that they would help change the way the care was in our home state, because not everyone is able to travel to get
Yeah.
care. Not everyone has the opportunity to do that, whether it's financial reasons or insurance reasons or just home reasons. Traveling's hard for care. It's not easy to go out of state for 2 days every month or every other month to go to multiple appointments and have to worry about what your husband and your children at home, and you're by yourself. So it's not always easy to
Yeah.
travel. So that's why it was important to us to make sure we bring that knowledge back down. So hopefully the next child wouldn't have to travel for care.
I like that. Plus you had oxygen tanks or the wheel,
Yeah.
it's a number of things. So that's
Yeah.
awesome that you were able to do that and move that community forward, pass the word. And I think that's what, Steve, as you were talking about that, at point of Dane's diagnoses today, compared to today, we're up the slope. How do we get that just more commonly known? Us, what a challenge we're in, but at the same token, there's just building blocks. I think that three of
Mhm.
us were sitting in our champion doctor, we have our doctor panels at SOFT conference, and we had a
Mhm.
little meeting after kind of all the panels were done. And I remember a couple of them, and maybe you guys can speak to this, but just like, it would be great to have just like a call to arms, or, for these doctors that helped many a trisomy 18 have either done surgeries or consulting of sorts. Like, it would be great to have some sort of like clear, articulate report. And then like 3 weeks later, this AAP, not, no, it wasn't even 3 weeks. It
Mhm.
was, I think, a week later, it just came out, and it was like,
Mhm.
well, okay. Now we have some like really like a document to point to say, hey, we have some others are saying the same things we are, which is there are options for families.
Mhm.
A variety of interventions could be a possibility, and everything needs to be at least evaluated and allow the families to have all the info in front of them. But that was quite, I guess, paradigm shift, going from, a Thursday, we're all sitting in this room, to like 2 weeks later, boom, we've got what they were asking for.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit, like, I love what you guys are sharing, and I love all of it. Tell me a little bit. You talked about the geneticist friend. Is there anything else that brought you support? This is, you can say soft at this point, or anything else, how that got introduced to you, or self-promoting plug there. But just tell me about kind of like the evolution of that. I know you guys had a lot of doctor friends and camaraderie with that, but tell me a little bit about things that got you through the tough times.
So, I mean, Soft was definitely an influence, especially as it got closer to his birth and after he was born. It was fun because there were many children born right around Dane was born.
One in particular. So when he was born and in the NICU, his next door neighbor was the trisomy 18 baby that was born the same day. They were
A
like
couple hours
a
apart.
couple
So
hours
they're
apart.
two born the same day?
Yeah, same day,
Eh,
same hospital, next door in the NICU. And it actually led to, it was funny because I guess for the teams it led to some confusion, because I don't want to, can I share that part? But like their last name led to confusion with us because of what we do. Because of their last name. So when it was just kind of funny that if the team was asking about the doctor's babies, they wouldn't know. They had to clarify which one it was.
I bet.
But that also goes back to kind of the different paths that everyone takes, right? There's no right path for a family. It's the right path is whatever they choose. And th- that baby went down a different path than our baby, and that's okay. Everyone has their choices that they make.
He had
And
much more severe heart
yeah,
issues and some other things going on as well.
right. Um, so that was our kind of first introduction, and the team was very supportive, I will say, at the hospital, of us,
Except
and
one nurse,
except one nurse, yes.
our first nurse.
Yeah, but that even goes back to still kind of changing the narrative in terms of what healthcare professionals view this as, and getting them to participate and be in that. Um, and so, we relied a lot on friends and family, especially family, and it was hard because we didn't have family in the same city. Our family, we had moved to Las Vegas because our family at that point was West Coast still. We were in Pennsylvania before that for training. And we had gone to Las Vegas because it was a nice kind of equidistant between California, Oregon, and Arizona, where all of our family was. So people would be semi-close. Uh, and so we had, especially, Jen's mom came to help a lot. And that was really, just having family come and um, help get us through those early times, because there's a lot going on, not just having a new baby, but having a new baby with medical problems that you have to get logistics for. At that point, we weren't on oxygen when he went home,
He was on
right?
just a little tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit. So it wasn't like
And
he
nasal
was later
cannula.
on. Yeah.
We also had an amazing palliative care team. They were home based, not hospital based. And our palliative care doctor was a neonatologist, and she was at a different hospital than Dane was born at. But she pretty much gets all the trisomy babies at the time. Um,
But that took us a little while because, for even as doctors, like you hear palliative care and you think, more kind of end of life, but really they're there to assist families. And so for us, that palliative care help was amazing. We had an amazing nurse that would come visit
every week.
every week and help with Dane. And, the insurance was, I was in a private practice group. We had great insurance, but, I spent so many hours on the phone fighting for things for him, just because, oh, well, we don't cover that. Well, so then, we had to pay for a pulse ox out of pocket because the insurance wouldn't cover it, which ultimately they did. We kind of got to the point where we could force them to, but they didn't want to pay for
And
that.
palliative care ended up covering it for us as well.
Yeah.
So what insurance lacks, sometimes they would help out with. But our palliative care team was Dane's biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
The physician and the nurse were both very on top of how he was doing, wanting to know. We had personal cell phone communication with them, and all of their patients do. And you say you want to go see a specific specialist, or you want to go do something specifically, maybe a surgery, a treatment plan, and we would have a conversation about it. And if they saw that was a way that you could go, they were all for it. And they were like, yes, let's go do that. Let's go see what this person has to say to make his life better. So that was extremely helpful the first month, because it's overwhelming. You bring this baby home, whether it's from the NICU, anywhere from the hospital, and you're like, okay, now what? What do we do? And especially as physicians, they assumed we knew how to do some things, that like replace an NG tube, that they didn't show us how to do in the hospital. And luckily we had put NG tubes in other patients, but not your own child. Like, it's totally different. So our amazing nurse came over,
I
and she's
normally
like,
do it under under X-ray guidance, so
And my
I can
patients are
see what I'm
asleep when
doing.
I do it. So like we did it together the first couple of times. So it was just, you know, it's overwhelming because you're like, it's overwhelming to come home with a regular newborn, but you come home with a
Yeah.
newborn that has a lot of care they have to do, and you're like, where do I start? What do I do? Like, it's just having that supportive people that have been through it or people that can help you through it is key.
And our
So,
pediatrician was great too. He was willing to to go through the process with us, even though he didn't, wasn't as comfortable because he didn't have I don't know that he had any trisomy babies.
Probably
But
not since residency, I think.
yeah, so he was willing to go through that with us. And, when we needed documentation, he was more than willing to, help provide it. And so having all that care was great and amazing. And, you really have to lean on, those professionals to help you, figure stuff out sometimes.
Well, and then going back to Soft. So Soft was great because, like I said, there were like 4 or 5 kids, and a lot of them are still alive today that were born around the same time. And so it was fun. We were going through a lot of the same experiences together. And then you have the boy club. So trisomy 18 boys, there's not as many as trisomy 18 girls, and that's in the 13 world as well. And so you've kind of formed this club with the other boy moms because you are going, it's just a different world. Like, you're excited and you're cheering for each other. I mean, I cheer for the girls too, right? But when you're one of 8 girls that or one boy of the 8 girls that were born during that time frame, you're like, my boy is going to do these things and he's going to beat these odds that, are more stacked against him because, you know, boys are weaker a little when it comes to the trisomy kids. So it was fun to have the other trisomy boy moms because we all had a bond together. We knew each other's sons were going through what they were doing. Oh, you're doing now. I can't wait for my son to do this. And so it's just kind of a different, path and world that we had. So that was really helpful. So,
Yeah.
and some of the boys look alike too, if you ever see pictures. So,
That I've heard about the boy club, but obviously I'm not involved. I'm not invited to that particular club. But what a neat thing. If I could kind of just say a couple things that stuck out to me, Steve, you talked about everybody's journey is different, and there were what odds? I guess you're in Vegas, so beating the odds is something that happens there. But have 2 boys. Was it a boy as well, or is it just 2 trisomy 18 babies?
it was a boy as
It was
well.
boy as well.
2
Yeah.
boys,
2
Dane
boys.
and his neighbor. And you're right. Like, we know a lot of families, a lot of members of Soft, a lot of people I've talked to, and even we'll be interviewing children either live a few minutes, few hours. Like, we're not unaware of the limiting factors. And like you said, and every family, I mean, at Soft, we do put a lot of pictures of kids that are living, and we kind of have a reputation, but everybody's journey is respected, and whatever decisions those family make. I was talking with Chris, and Chris Holiday was just kind of mentioning like different decisions, that there's not a right or wrong decision. Every day might provide a decision. Today, this is the right decision. Yesterday, it wasn't. Tomorrow, it might be different, right? And so everything is fluid. And I look at my own kids and say all their journeys are different. We have a different perspective because of either the things they can do or the fact that we look at life in years or decades for a non-disorder child, or like a typical child, as we kind of used in this interview. But everybody has their own journey, and so it might be a little microcosm, a little smaller for our children that have these disorders, but it's the same thing. And so we love support for any families and what they've done, and in particular those kids as they beat the odds, or as they at different stages. So wonderful. So one, I didn't know that about it. Dane had a neighbor. What a wild few days, I imagine, there. But yeah, go ahead. What was that, Jen?
I don't know if you know this part of our story, but at one point Dane was actually on hospice, and we thought he was going to pass away
No.
for his first birthday. So you talk about, you know, changes of life and changes of plans. And when we had Dane, our goal was just one step at a time. I want to have this baby and hold my child. I want to see my child come home to us. I want to hold my child in my hands. And we truly believed that we would let Dane lead the way in all those decision-making processes. Because you're right, it's hard at that time. You're like, do I do this or do I do that? I don't know. Like, they're both big decisions, and what's the right one? And like you said, sometimes there truly isn't a right one. You have to make the right one for yourself. And at that time, so when Dane was 11 months old, well, actually probably 10 months old, he got really sick with 2 different viruses and ended up in the hospital. He recovered from that, but then about 3 weeks later, he got really sick with 2 viruses again, RSV being one of them, and was very sick and started having all these kind of arrhythmias. He was having difficulty feeding.
See,
He was G-tube at that point. He was always G-tube and G-tube fed. Um, and we had to make the decision at that point because he wasn't really getting better. And like I said, he was having arrhythmias, and they're like, I don't know, like, what's going to happen. And so we ended up taking him off all his meds, which was one heart med he was on. And we brought him home on his oxygen, and we were still feeding him. He was getting breast milk still at that point. And so he just had his oxygen and the breast milk. And at one point, we thought he was going to pass. We gathered as a family, the 4 of us. We were sitting on the couch.
oh,
We
we
were
had all of
holding
them.
him, and actually, all our family was there because we had a celebration of life for him before and because we wanted to do it while he was still alive and have a celebration of life for him. And we were all sitting there on the couch with him, and turned kind of dusky, and we thought he was going to pass. So he was taking his last breaths, and then all of a sudden, something changed inside. And he's like, no, I'm going to fight, and I'm not going to. And he like came back like tenfold, like a couple breaths later. And I was like, what is going on? And we like that night we restarted his heart medicine, and we're like, no, he's not giving up. He's because before that he was telling us like, I think it's my time to go. And then all of a sudden he was like, no, I changed my mind. It is not my time to go. I'm going to be around longer. I have bigger things to do. And that realization, like, okay, we're doing this thing, and that was the right thing, but now we got calling the doctor. I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. We're coming off of hospice. He wants to fight longer. And a couple months later, when his heart was more stable and he was a little more stable, he got his trach, and we had him for 3 more years. We had celebrated his first birthday. So you don't know at that point of time until you're in it when you're making that decision if it's the right decision. And we always said we would live with no regrets for anything that we did for him, because we decided that Dane was going to tell us what he needed done for himself.
So maybe we didn't go to Hawaii after that because we just gotten back from
We
Hawaii
had
when that happened. But we still took him to the beach at like San Diego. So
yes. Oh, I should tell you, this is one of my favorite memories too. We went to when he was 5 or 6 weeks old. We drove to San Diego from Vegas, so it was a 5-hour drive. And we buried him in the sand up to his elbow, no, up to his armpits in the sand. Like, who buries their 5 or 6 month old or 5 or 6 week old in the sand? Probably not many people, but we did because we wanted to bury him in the sand. Like, we wanted to do things you would do as your child and have that memory of him being buried in the sand, and sitting there. So we have those pictures of him sitting there buried in the sand. So it's just, the fun little things you do maybe at an earlier time frame than you would with another child.
What good advice? Just kind of live that list you talked about earlier, life list. Let's not call it a bucket list, a life list, and just getting some things done. And and all that. And two, about you said about his, was it on his 1 year birthday or just right around that he just,
It was about a
man, he
week
just
before.
decided a week before. So he's just about to turn one. He goes, not yet, not yet. He came back stronger. That's awesome. I did
Mhm.
not know that story. These are fun stories. I mean, these are just, I mean, and this is, everybody's is different, but these are typical when I talk to families that, we rub shoulders with at Soft, and what just magical moments they have, and their siblings have, and their, the other children, what wonderful things. Let's talk about Dane's legacy. Like, what do you guys, I know in my house for Carrie, we have an angel tree at Christmas, and Carrie's prominent in the house just like any other kid's picture. And my kids, the Chris and Hal's grandkids, know her. Like, so what do you guys do as far as Lane's legacy in your home, around? And do you guys do anything, traditions? Tell me about that.
Well, so I mean, his middle name is Thor. So Jen right now has a necklace of
Yeah.
Thor's hammer on, and it's actually a small urn. So it has a little bit of his ashes in it, and then we have a couple Thor figurines that we like to take with us wherever we travel, so that way, we always have Dane with us wherever we go.
That's
So,
awesome.
We
and
usually take pictures with him
yeah,
too, so he's
we'll
in our
we'll we'll
pictures.
bring him out for pictures sometimes. Try to not get him too dirty, but we bring him out for pictures. We have him around us every day. We cremated him, and we have his urn here at the house, and that's kind of a focal point in the living room, with other things that we've kind of collected for him. One of our the the pastor where he was baptized would carve little figurines, and one was of a Viking, and so he gave that to us as a present.
He had actually carved the Viking years before,
Yeah.
and the Viking had had a sword at one point, and at one point the sword had broken off the Viking, and it was very close to when Dane passed that the sword had broken off. And when we went to talk to him about the funeral, he said, it's interesting. I had this Viking that I carved, and the sword just came off, and that was one of the Viking traditions, right, about the sword, the with their swords, right? And he's like, I think this is for Dane, and so he gave it to us in memory of Dane for his funeral. So that's sitting with him right now too.
Mhm.
So at Christmas, so we have always exchanged ornaments for every family member. So Dane has a stocking, and he gets little stocking stuffers in it, usually some candy or little toys that my kids steal. And he always gets an ornament because everybody in our family gets an ornament. So he ornament for that goes on the tree. And when he gets enough ornaments, he will have his own tree. But right now there's only 9 of them. So it would be a very little tree. So his ornaments still go on the tree with the rest of our family. Um, for his birthday, we always have a celebration. We get balloons. We'll do a birthday cake. And then on his day that he passes, we usually we usually try to do things. So we used to try to go away and do something, but that's gotten harder now that Derek's in high school. We give the option if they want to go to school or not on either his birthday or his anniversary of his death. And we just do celebrate him. And then throughout the year for doing things, and it's something that he would have loved, I don't know, we talk about how, like, Dane would have loved this. Can you imagine him here? Could you imagine him doing this with us? We talk about him probably daily. At least I do. and, and my kids, Elin does too. Both my kids probably do. And so, he's just forever in our lives. Like, he's not hidden. He's out. We talk to it. It's hard here. Most people don't know him here. Only we moved after he passed away to Tennessee, and that was actually really hard. Most people don't know him here. There's only a handful of people here that did meet him at one point. Um, so it's interesting. It's fun talking to people about him that have never met him. We try to spread his joy and his smile. If you ever see photos of him or videos of him, he always has this huge smile and he's always very joyful and he brought life to a room. And so we talk about those things and we talk about what he had, his diagnosis, and we talked about, how that didn't limit him and what he did. So people probably get tired of us talking about him. And sometimes they're uncomfortable because they don't know what to do because, like I said, they've never met him. So they're like, this lady's talking about her dead child. How do we
Yeah, it's hard because they want to be apologetic and say sorry, and it's like you don't have to apologize.
Yeah.
It's not something that needs apologizing for. And
Yeah.
We just want to share him with you.
yeah,
Yeah. The pictures are amazing. So, because at conference we have the remembrance room, and he's got his little setup and his Thor doll and all of that. But yeah, absolutely right. When we post the pictures here during the interview of the AP, that picture alone is like, you can tell just how delightful, like just like a ray of light. And there's just people that just do that, and they bring a smile, and it's like, oh yeah, life is good. Things are okay. And Dane had that about him, just from what I've seen and what I've heard and everything like that. So it's the journey, right? And as families, and for me, I'm a big family man. My family is my most important thing. And I've always felt that way with you guys, that's kind of just like the pinnacle of it. And Dane is your family, and he brings you all together. And for years and years and years from now, he will always be a part of it. And so, as someone that's kind of seen that journey a little bit ahead, it's a wonderful thing. So yeah, don't stop talking about Dane, even if other people are unaware of why you're doing it. Keep doing it. Those are some pretty cool traditions and other things. I just love the perspective that you two bring, and all the changes that you've helped inspire at Soft, being board members, being ones that don't that share your career, your knowledge, all the many years of studying. You guys kind of bring that perspective to Soft, and make sure that we're hitting the right notes and doing those things. Jen spending a lot of time on those new and expectant parent books and creating that kind of template that's been able to be created. Just wonderful about your family. I got to tell this though, because we are recording something, and I think it was 2 years, 2024. I have more of those videos that'll be coming out, but your children, they started being like producers with me. They always would follow around to make sure the set was set up. We were interviewing families. It's taken a long time to get those edited, but with some recent, advancements in technology, we're going to get those out. Been working on some, but man, they're just a delight, and your family's wonderful.
thanks.
Anything we haven't talked about? I mean, I know we've gone on some tangents and we've talked about some different things, but is there anything that you guys are like, man, I just want to share this, or have come to mind
We
in the
could talk
recent minutes?
forever.
As you should.
No, I mean, I think, because we talked about, kind of what kind of the positive movement that's going on, and, how we see things professionally. And we've talked a lot about Dane. So I don't know how much, what else really is to cover, but
I just want to say that I think it's been a great opportunity that we've been able to be so involved in SOS. And that's one thing that has been so fulfilling since he passed away, is being able to impact SOTH with his legacy, whether it's, helping with the expectant parent books, helping with some of the support pathway stuff that we did, or just going to conference and seeing our family at conference. Um, I try to think of ways that we can continue spreading word. And, I love that we've been able to have that impact in Soft to do that. John and I have talked about how do we keep spreading the word of Soft during conference to other physicians, and how do we involve them and bring them to see our kids, especially if we aren't going to be utilizing the local hospitals at some of the conferences? How do we get local physicians to see our kids? Because our kids are special, and seeing them in person and greeting and meeting them makes you truly realize and how special our children are. Um, and I don't know. It's just one of my favorite things. I thought I'd be very sad the first soft conference we went to. Dane was able to go to one soft conference. He went up into Michigan. I thought we'd be really sad the first conference that we went to without him, and we were. But seeing the other kids just brings light, and when you can steal them and hold them or help their parents out now as angel parents, like that's one thing we can do is, take a load off them for a little bit. Sure, go to the bathroom or go talk to your friends and have a drink with them. I'll sit over here with your child and just get the joy of that child for those moments. It's a special place. It's a special thing to be able to do now.
Yeah. I love that, speaking of conference, you don't have to explain yourself, right?
No.
And so it's just, especially sibling to sibling, if I could talk for that, they don't have to explain themselves or, um, what a wonderful time to be. The one thing that crosses my mind that I want to bring up, is having doctors, pediatricians, any medical professional to see our kids, these kids that are living with trisomy 1813, and we have a lot of trisomy 9 families. When I was interviewing with Dr. Carey and Dr. Pyle, and maybe you guys with your careers in medicine, sometimes if you're treating the sick all the time, right, whether it be whatever it is, if I'm treating pneumonia all the time and you don't ever see you get this kind of perception or this paradigm of like that I always see sickness, or I always deal with this. And so with our kids, there can be severe illnesses that are related and complications and all these things. And these kids do end up in the ICU at times, and they do have to go to the hospital to get, deal with seizures and other things. And so these clinicians only see the sick moments. And so, yeah, they're both kind of referencing that. And so, Steve, you mentioned it. Jen, you mentioned, just getting around kids in their best days and not in their worst days, and what that perception can change and do for these individuals, so these medical professionals, how that can change. So, I thought that was pretty neat.
And getting them to see how they enjoyed life and how they can interact with the world, right?
Yeah.
Well, and
Because they
also,
don't get that perspective. They just see them as a patient. They don't see kind of the day-to-day enjoyment that children get.
and they also don't see how the siblings are with their children, because I've heard parents tell me they get told, "Oh, your child is going to lack, your normal child is going to lack for things because of the other child is going to always be needing things, and they're going to lack attention or this or that, or or how detrimental it could be to a sibling," which I don't know. It's all the trisomy siblings I met are cool. Like, they don't seem to be lacking for anything. In fact, I think they've gained a lot of skills and a lot of things. And I think it's
Well, you're talking to one.
and I'm talking.
Yeah, you're talking to one.
So I think
Compliment
especially as
accepted.
physicians, like, we don't always see the family impact that a child has. And so I think it's cool that you can see, especially at conference, you can see the impact that the siblings have had on each other. So, and you're
Yeah.
right, you get a telescopic view as a physician when you always see the same thing. It's hard not to, especially if you work in the critical care world. It's hard. You see a lot of sick patients. You see a lot of bad outcomes. You see some good outcomes, but usually those good outcomes leave and you don't see what happens afterwards. And so your perspective is biased. And it's sometimes hard to lose that bias, and you have to protect yourself as a physician too. Um, so it's a tough world. So I think that's why A lot of physicians sometimes view things the way they do, unfortunately. But once you've had a sick child or adult in your house, your perspective does change. So, or if you've had been influenced by one and see them outside of the house or outside the hospital. So,
I think that's fair. I mean, as one that's worked in either marketing or business environments, I never thought about that bias that come, and it's not on purpose. It's just that's your job, right? Like when you go into the hospital and you treat that, if you don't have the experience or the touch points I just think of if you told, the doctors that were part of the diagnosis, part of the birth of Dane to be like, he rode a roller coaster. He was buried in the sand. Like you go through these these milestone moments that you guys made, and like, yeah, we did that. Yeah,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
happened,
Well,
and Dane was, and we were all happy, and it was great. So just, I love these stories, and I want to kind of gather as many as we can. So I think at this point, I'd love to just like, if there's any lasting wisdom or words of advice that either of you want to each of you take. I don't care who goes first, but if you guys want to get like a little nugget of information, if something of inspiration comes to mind, to wrap up, and then we'll close up.
okay. Well, my advice is to find your people, find the people that will support you, find the people that you can talk to. They might not be the same person. Um, there's a lot you go through as a parent, before and after birth and after death. There's a lot of different stages, and you really need to find the person that's going to help you through those stages. And like I said, it can be one person or it could be many people. Never stop fighting for your child and follow what they want to.
Taking mine.
Oh, you got to redo that though. We'll just mute Steve. I just kidding. You guys are the same audio track, so you got to do that again. Fight. Do that one.
Never stop fighting for your child and follow what they're telling you. I think they're the biggest proponents for themselves and will tell you what they need and want at the time they are going through it. So, and we have a saying in our house, Dane was the mighty Dane Thor. So, that's kind of what we called him. And that's kind of still his legacy. And I'm probably stealing all of Steve's, and he's going to be so happy with me.
No, I don't have anything to say. She did both, so I'm good, because mine was going to be, you do have to, not just as, coming from the physician, but as the parent, really, you have to push, when they tell you no, but, you're the parent. Ultimately, the choice lies, you're getting informed from the team, but, you got to push for what you think is right. Listen to what they're saying, but at the same time, don't, if it's a no that you don't think is the right no, then push for that change and keep pushing for them. So,
And sometimes it's okay if you say no, even if the physician says yes.
right.
I think that's important to remember, that it should be a team, not just one person making the decisions.
I think it's wonderful. Joint decision making and respect the decision, I think, is what we're hopeful for as an organization, with information, the latest information to be in the minds and hands of these families, so then they can make those that fit their family, that are right for their child, and we will support you along the way. So again, thank you, Dane. Thank you for Mighty Thor Dane. Did I get that right?
The mighty Thor Dane, yeah.
Mighty Thor Dane for all the wonderful memories
Dane Thor.
and the many to come. But thank you, Steve and Jen, for joining with us today. These are awesome. So what a podcast. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.